So what shall I say?
Tell me your story, starting on October 5th, 1942.
Well, on October 5th, 1942, I was 21 years old, and as usually, they called me into the service, into the army. I was called to a place called Komarom, and they put me into a labor battalion with the rest of the Jews, with the Jewish boys. We were about 200 in that regiment, and they gave us about 3 months of military training, as a regular military training, and then they divided us into a labor battalion. First, we were working in Banhida, which was a power station, and we were digging for the generators, that lake. I think we were there about almost a year. From there, they sent us to a coal mine, a place called Varpalota. And that coal mine, we were working quite a few months. From there, we were sent over to the eastern part of Hungary, which was near my hometown, and over there we had to dig bunkers. In 1944, around it was 1940, the end of 1943, or the beginning of 1944, I don't remember exactly, we were sent to the front, to the eastern front, to Poland. Over there, we were working as, we were digging graves for the dead soldiers. Beside that, we were also looking for mines and so forth. Now, I was lucky because the battalion where we belonged to, they needed some more people, and they took out 25 boys from my regiment, and they gave us military uniforms, and they divided us into the supply magazines to work. So I was lucky because I was there in the same place till about 1940, to the end of 1944, till December 1944. In December 19, we came back from Poland because the Russians, they forced us to go, not only us, because the whole military units, to come back, and I was sent back to the inner country of Hungary, where they kept us there till about January 1940. Yeah, from there they took us to Germany, and we were near the Austrian-Hungarian border. Over there, they divided us already. There was already a military camp under the supervision of the Hungarian Nazis. The Nazi was no more military; it was a Nazi camp. And we came about 1,800 with my transport, and we wound up only 300 alive.
What was the name of the camp?
The camp, they called it Hidegshég. It's near the Hungarian border. I think it's on the Hungarian side, or on the, I don't remember if it's that, but there was a lot of Germans and Hungarians in that town. Well, 1944 in April, but it was exactly our Pesach. I remember they transferred us to Mauthausen into the concentration camp Mauthausen, where we were kept for about 3 weeks, and from Mauthausen we were sent to Austria, place called Gunskirchen, and in Gunskirchen we stayed for about 3 or 4 weeks, and till May 5th, 1945, where the United States Army liberated us.
How old were you when you were drafted to the labor force?
21.
When were you drafted?
In 1942, October 5th.
Did you know you were to serve as forced labor in the Hungarian army?
Well, yes, because the Jews, they were sent to the forced labor already that time.
Who told you?
It was the law. Everybody knew that, because the boys who were taken a year ahead of me, they were already in labor battalion.
Describe the unit in which you served. How many Jews were there?
200 Jews.
Who were the officers in charge?
You mean the name, or?
If you remember.
It's very hard to remember. It's very hard to remember. There was one officer who was the commanding officer, and there was about 3 sergeants and a few plain soldiers, Hungarian soldiers, who kept guards on us.
And the commander was Hungarian?
Yeah, all of them were Hungarian.
Were there any non-Jews among the forced labor soldiers?
No, not with us.
What was the attitude of the officers to the Jews? Were they nice, bad,
well,
different?
You found sometime an intelligent officer who was human, and most of them were not human.
Can you tell us any stories?
For example, what story?
Anything specific that you remember that shows how they were human or not human?
The commanding officer, as far as I remember that time, he was a liberal man, and he even allowed us to keep a kosher kitchen. He gave us, when it was a Jewish holiday, he gave us off on the Jewish holidays, but not always he could keep those things, because he was under a command too. So whatever he did on his own. Now, at that time, when he was our commanding officer, the rest of the soldiers and the sergeants, they had to keep quiet too, because they saw what the commanding officer does. So they were afraid to do something bad to us. But I'll tell you another story, which I remember when they took me on the front, on the Eastern Front, when they picked out 25 Jewish boys from our battalion, and we were sent to that supply magazine unit. So we came over there, it was lunchtime, and we were standing as usual. All the 25 Jews were standing in the back behind for lunch. And all of a sudden I see an officer came on a horse, and he was looking at us. He went around us and he looked at us, and of course we got scared. We didn't know what's going on. So he called the sergeant who was in charge over there. He said, "Sergeant, who are those partisans here?" So the sergeant told them, "Well, they're not partisans, they're Jews." So he says, "What do you mean Jews? Since when do I have in my unit Jews?" He says, "They were sent over to us, and I don't know why. We don't need them here." He says, "Sergeant, let me make something clear. I don't have Jews, I don't have gypsies, I don't have Catholics, I have soldiers. I don't care who they are, as long as they are soldiers. So why don't they have decent clothes? Because, we were a labor camp, we have civilians." So the sergeant said, "I don't know." He says, "Take them into the office and give them, everybody should be dressed as a soldier, as a decent soldier. And from now on, I don't want to have a group in the back to wait for lunch. Everybody who comes in should stay in the line as he comes, regardless of his background or regardless of his religion, because I don't care about religion. So, of course, they took us into the office and they gave us nice clothes, and we were dressed like any other soldiers. They didn't know that we are Jews. From then on, we were treated very nicely. As a matter of fact, we were treated better than nice, because we had all the keys in our hand. We had the supply. They were begging the soldiers came begging to me. I should give them a piece of chocolate, or I should give them an extra meat or something, or cigarettes. We had unlimited amount, because we were. But what happened is that there was his help. He was, I think, that officer. He was a colonel, and in his help he was a captain, and he was a very anti-Semite. He was always saying, whenever he saw us, he said, "Look, our soldiers are bleeding on the fronts." It was winter, and the Jews are eating here the best food and chocolates, and they're smoking the best cigarettes. He says, "Wait, the time will come, I'll get even with you." We were telling this to the colonel, and he says, don't mind him. He says, he can do nothing to you. But the time came when that colonel was arrested as a communist. If he was a communist or not, I don't know. I never spoke to him politics, but he must have been something, a socialist or a liberal, because the way he treated us and the way he treated everybody. So he was arrested, and his helper became the commanding officer. The first thing what he did, the first night, he says, all the Jews have to give up their uniforms, the military uniforms, and I'm going to send them right away to the slaughterhouse. I didn't even know what slaughterhouse means. But we didn't know what to do. We were 25 Jews, and we didn't know what to do. So one of the boys told me that we should try to speak to the priest. The priest knew that we are Jews, and that officer was sleeping. He slept in the priest's house. And the priest was sending every morning, his maid used to come to us and to our supply magazine, and she used to bring me milk, in a can of milk, and she used to bring me a piece of paper, and he was asking, one day I should give him salt instead of the milk, one day I had to give him some fat, So every day I gave him or vinegar. It was very hard to get, or matches. So every day she brought me the milk, and I split out them because I didn't need the milk, but I gave the priest whatever he needed. I thought, now's the time, maybe he can repay this to us. So I was appointed to go to the priest because I knew him well. So I came over to the priest. It was at night, and he was praying over there. So he says to me, "What is my son?" I says to him, "It's very bad, because the way we heard that they want to take us, winter is January, they're taking away, we don't have any other clothes, they're taking away the military clothes from us, and we wind up naked, and we don't know even where we are going. At least maybe you can speak to that officer. He should give us at least old clothes, something." He says, he was listening to me, and he says, "My son," he says, "take your friends and go to the Jewish cemetery." Of course, there was no Jews anymore because all the Jews were taken away already. He says, "Take your friends to the Jewish cemetery and knock on the door. There is that little house where they put knock 3 times on the door and say, 'I send you there,' and everything will be taken care of." And he didn't want to speak to me anymore. I didn't know what it means, so I came back, and all of them were waiting for me, and I told them what the priest told me. Some of them understood the message. About 4 or 5, they left right away, and they went to the Jewish cemetery. I never saw them. Just after the liberation, I spoke to them. I found them. But most of them, we didn't know what to do. But in the morning, they changed the order was changed. We had to exchange our uniforms. We had new uniforms, so we had to take old uniforms, tear up uniforms. But it wasn't matter because we had extra uniforms, So when we left, they took us to a factory where they concentrated all the Jewish labor people. They concentrated them, and from there they took us to Germany. But on the way, when we left that town, it was a little town, and one of the butchers, because the butchers, they knew us, they used to supply meat to us. So he says, must you go? I says, do I have a choice? He says, why didn't you go? He says, why didn't you go to the priest? I says, I went by the priest. You know what he told me? I should go to the Jewish cemetery. He says, why didn't you go? 40 Jews we have there hidden. We hide there 40 Jews and we supply them with food. Why didn't you go there? I says, now it's late already. So this is the story. But those boys who were there, who left, they had a very bad time, because after we left, the Russians, they were shooting on that place, and the Germans came exactly on the Jewish cemetery. All around were Germans. Now the Germans, it was raining, it was a cold rain, and the German wanted to go into that house, you know, to hide a little bit from the rain. Now over there is 40 Jews. They cannot go out. They cannot get any food for a few days already. Now all of them were keeping the door. He told me they shouldn't go in because they would kill them. So they were lucky that after a week later, they were liberated by the Russians.
Were you ever sent to Russia?
Well, I don't know if you call it Russia. It was Poland, Russia.
Where was it exactly? Do you know
It was Kolomea. I was in Kolomea and in that area.
What were you told you were going to do there?
Well, they didn't tell us anything. They just took us, and we had to do whatever they say.
What kind of equipment to work with did they give you? What kind of tools or what kind
Shovels.
Where did you work exactly? Relate in detail your experiences on the front in each of the places you were sent to. Tell us about meeting with the local population, the local Jews, the German soldiers, Russian prisoners of war.
Well, as far as the local Jews, there were no local Jews at all. Now, with the local population, I could communicate, I could speak their language, but the only one thing I had to do with them, I was trading food with them, with the local population. Now, as far as my work is concerned, there was variety there. I never knew what I'm going to do tomorrow, because sometimes they needed to clear up a road where they didn't know if there is mines, so they picked us. Sometimes they picked another labor, but if we were near there, so they picked us and they told us to clean up the snow. But we found out that there were mines, because we found mines over there.
Did you meet any Russian prisoners of war?
Yes.
And what happened when you met them? Were they friendly? What happened?
I found Russian prisoners of war when I was in that supply magazine. So they gave us, we had about 12 or 15 Russian prisoners who were working, they helped us to work over there. Now, they found out that we are Jews, and they told us, because we asked them if it would be advisable for us to run over the line to the Russians. So the prisoners told us, don't go, you have better here. He says, they don't like you too much over there. He says, the Russians, they don't like you too much. So we didn't go there.
Did you meet any German soldiers?
I met German soldiers because we were eating lunches with the German soldiers.
Were they friendly or unfriendly?
They didn't know that we are Jews.
Oh.
Because we were in military uniforms, but I used to make a joke with them. They used to speak to me, to ask me something, so I told them instead, ich verstehe nicht. I told them, ich stehe nicht für. You know, I turned it out, so he was mad, yeah. But nothing serious.
The local Jews were anti-Semitic or were not?
There was no local Jews.
The local non-Jewish population.
The local non-Jewish population, yeah. Some of them were anti-Semitic, and some of them. I remember that there was a family where we were stationed with that supply magazine. So across the street there was a very like aristocratic family. The husband was in the Hungarian army, and the women, they were farmers. and they had a girl, a very nice, a beautiful girl. She went, I think, she finished high school that time. She graduated from high school, and that woman, she needed also from us some favors. So we made a deal with her. I says to her, look, I'm sick and tired already of that military food. I would like to eat some home cooked food. So you do the cooking for us, and we'll give you whatever you need. So she agreed. Every day we went over there, and she made us very nice paprika. You know, the home cook. So that girl, she was working near the table. She never wanted to speak to us. That girl, she didn't even. I thought maybe she doesn't like us. We were young boys. And I brought her presents, chocolate, you know, she never wanted to accept from us anything. I didn't know why, and I was ashamed to ask her mother. But one night, it was, I think, before Christmas or something, or New Year, and they made a party. So we had wine, we had bottles of wine which looked like honey, you know, old bottles, 300-400-year-old bottles we found over there in those cellars. So we brought over wine and all kind of good things because we had everything, and we had a good time. All of a sudden they had a little girl, and that little girl was looking always in my pockets if she finds some chocolate. So she took out my military book, you know, it was like an identification book, and she showed her mother, and it was my picture. She says, "Mommy, look how nice a picture." And the woman looked at it and she saw that religion Jew. She was pale, she got scared. She called me aside and she says to me, "Are you out of your mind?" I says, "Why?" She says, "Don't you know what they'll do to you? You are not afraid to keep a book like this?" I says, "Why? What did I do?" She says, "You are Jewish." I says, "So what? So are the rest of them." She doesn't believe that. So I says, "Look, come in and ask." There was one between us was a goy. He wasn't Jewish. He was I think he was a sergeant or something. He knew that we are Jews. So I says, "Ask him." So she asked him, "Tell me, what is the religion of those people?" He says, "They're Jewish boys." So after that, the girl, when she heard that we are Jews, she became friendly with us. She said hello, and she kissed us, all of them. I says to her, "Tell me the truth, why didn't you speak to me before?" She says, "Look, I don't like soldiers, but you are not soldiers, you are Jews. This is different." So it shows that they were nice people.
How high was the mortality rate among the men?
You mean the morality?
Mortality, the death rate.
Or the death? Well, as long we were maybe we went. It's very hard to say because they mixed. Some of them left. Some of them. I would say there was about 20% dead on the front, but inside in the camp there was a lot more.
Which camp was this?
And that Hidekshey camp.
Hidekshey.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a minute. Did you see anything of the destruction of the Jewish communities?
Well, I came in Jewish houses and I saw Jewish books, pictures on the floor. That's all I could see.
You were never captured by the Russians?
No.
You never became a partisan in the Ukraine?
No.
If you came back to Hungary, you came back to Hungary at the end of the war?
Well, I came back with my unit.
Yeah. Please describe your evacuation or flight, the fate of your fellow workers, the attitude towards you during the retreat of the Hungarians in charge, and your experiences after your return. How and when were you released from the labor force?
We came back from the front. We came back. We walked all the way. We walked by walking. We slept over wherever we came at night. We slept over, and I passed by my hometown. I was only 15 kilometers, which is about 7 miles from my hometown, and we slept over there. So I spoke with a friend of mine. I told him what would happen if we can go through there is a hill. If we pass that hill, we can be in a few hours, we can be in my hometown. Maybe we have a chance in my hometown to hide somewhere, and to wait until the Russians, because the Russians were supposed to come any day or maybe any week. So he agreed to that. In the morning, when the rest of them had to leave, and we stayed there because we slept outside on the fields, and so in the morning we wanted to go through that hill. The local people told us we shouldn't go because the artillery is there and they will capture us. So I thought maybe the best way is to go straight with the road. So we were in military. We had military uniforms on us, but in order to have an excuse, so I took off my shoe and I made like I'm injured. You know, I'm. All of a sudden, we went maybe about 4 or 5 miles on the road, and somebody was waiting.
Yeah.
So the guy, all of a sudden, someone stopped us, and he says, "Hands up." So I put my hands up, and he says, "Give me your military identification book." So I gave him my military identification book, and he says, "You are under arrest." I says, "No, why? What did I do wrong?" He says, you are both communists. Because I had nothing to do with the Communist Party. I was never a communist. I was never a fascist. Leave me alone. He was an officer. He says, "No." He says, "I'll take care of you." But I never knew what happened. So he took us into a little town, which I knew very well. I used to go to that town when I was a little boy. He took us in the square, and he wanted to hang us, you know, the Hungarian way of hanging people, not by the neck, by the hand. You know, they in the back, and they pull you up.
Yeah, I saw on the film.
So, well, I saw I'm in trouble. At least I asked him. I told him, "Look, what did I do wrong?" He never wanted to tell me why. He says, "You are communist," and so forth and so forth. But while I was waiting over there, they went to bring some ropes. And they had a party, they had a ball over there to see 2 Jews now hang on in middle of the square, you know, on a telephone thing. So I was lucky because the sergeant major from our unit, not from my old unit, where they took me out from to that military supply unit. So that sergeant major, I saw him in a wagon with the horses. He went by with 2 soldiers on the street. So I called him. I said, "Sergeant Major." He looked at me. He recognized me and my friend. He says, "What are you doing here?" I says, "I don't know what they want to do with me." So he came over there and he saw that officer. He says to him, "They are your people?" He says, "Yes, they are my people. They are my Jews." He says, you should be ashamed of yourself. You know they're communists." He says, "Why are they communists?" He says, "Because they were complaining for the general that they didn't get food ready for about 2 or 3 days, and this is not true. You know this is not true." So the sergeant major asked me, "Did you complain? Did you spoke to a general?" I said, "I never saw a general in my life." He says, the officer says, "He is lying." So the sergeant major says, "Look, give them to me and I'll take care of them." He says to the officer, he says, "But I can do that. I have to punish him myself." "You wouldn't punish him. I'll punish him because they're my people and I have the right to punish him." So, and he didn't wait too long. He took us and he pushed us on the wagon and we went. So on the way, the sergeant major says to me, "What did you do? Did you speak?" I says, "No, I didn't speak." "What are you doing here?" I says, "I'll tell you the truth, Sergeant Major. I wanted to go home. My hometown is only a few miles. And I wanted to go through the hill, but they told me there is artillery, so I thought maybe I'll go by road." He says, "Why didn't you tell me? I would have helped you." I says, "But you weren't here. I belong to another unit." So meantime, he saved us. This is the way we came into Hungary.
What was the fate of your fellow workers?
You mean concerning what?
What happened to the people that were in the same labor battalion as you?
Other people, I would say 60% of them died and 40% are alive.
What was the attitude towards you during the retreat of the Hungarians in charge?
You mean how they treated us? like I told you, some of them were human, some of them were completely unhuman. We were bitten by them. Sometimes we were also, some of them were hanged also on the hands. They punished us, and there was a few intelligent people. They were treating us like human beings.
How and when were you released from the labor force?
From the labor force, I was released. Well, I told you that what's his name? That commanding officer who became in charge and who was anti-Semite, he turned us over to the Germans, and they took us to Germany. Can I take a cigarette? Just.
Questionnaire number 2 for camp of Hidegek, Hidegseg, near Wiener Neustadt. What date did you arrive at the camp?
It must have been in the beginning of January.
What year?
1945.
From where did you come?
From, they called it Kasha, Kass, where they put us in the train.
By what method of transportation? By train you came to the camp?
Yeah.
Did you arrive alone or with members of your family?
No, alone. I mean with my friends from the labor, from the...
But nobody from the family?
No.
What happened to the members of your family?
The members of my family, they were taken in Auschwitz. And
when you came to this camp, was there a selection on arrival?
No.
Describe the location and the size of the camp.
Well, there was no camp exactly. We lived in how you call it, in the where the cows live. Stables.
There was a guard system?
Yeah, the Hungarian Nazis.
And when was the camp set up?
It wasn't set up at all. We arrived there. They divided us in stables, and we slept in the stables. And every morning we had to come to the square, and.
But you were the first ones to come there. There was nobody before you.
There was before us. Yeah, there were some Hungarian women before in that place.
Who was the commanding officer? Do you remember?
Well, I remember, but I don't remember his name because nobody was even. We were afraid even to mention his name.
Do you remember the names of any of the officers or any of the men?
No.
Can you tell us anything about what they were like?
Well, all I know is that the commanding officer there, that Nazi, he was captured. He was captured about a few months after we were liberated, and they lynched him. He was lynched.
So he wasn't too well liked?
No. None of them were liked over there.
None of the officers?
No, they were Nazis.
How many Germans guarded the camp?
The Germans exactly didn't guard the camp at all. The Germans, they just supervised the labor, the work. As far as the Germans, they belonged to the organization TOD, if you heard about the TOD organization. But one of them, I remember, he was a very nice man because when I was working, we made those for the tanks. How you call those?
This I don't know.
No, the tank shouldn't be able to go through. So gates or something like that we were making.
Ditches?
Ditches, yeah, for tanks. So it was very cold, I remember, and I was working. I was together with a cousin of mine all the time. We kept together, and we were working a few minutes. Let's say 10 minutes. He was digging, and 10 minutes I was digging. We were working all the time because it was very cold. Otherwise, we would be frozen. So the man who was guarding us, he came to us, and he says to us in German, "Ihr seid Brüder?" If we are brothers. So we told him yes, because if they saw twins, then they respected more. So we told him yes, we are twins. We looked almost alike. So he says to me, work slowly, he says, you don't have to rush. And he came to us every half an hour, every hour he came to us to speak to us. Then, when I saw that he's a nice man, I says to him, look, maybe we can trade, maybe you can bring us something food. He says, look, we don't have too much food ourselves, but if I can help you, I'll help you. He says, I can give you, in return, I can give you something like soap. We brought from the army, we brought some soap and cigarettes. I can give you those things. He says, it's not necessary. He says, if I can give you, I'll give you bread. So every day he used to bring us few pieces of bread, what he saved from what they left. So he used to bring us, and he told us, don't worry, it wouldn't take too long. In a short while, you'll go home to your families.
How many non-Germans were guarding the camp?
Non-Germans?
Yeah.
Well, Hungarians.
Yeah.
How many? Well, 20, 25, who knows?
Was there anybody else, Ukrainians or Lets or anything else? No. The Germans that were guarding the camp belonged only to organization Todt. There were no other, no. Do you remember incidents that could be used to accuse individual Nazis as war criminals?
No.
How many inmates were there in the camp?
We were about 1,800.
What were their ages?
Oh, it was from 20 till 40.
They were all men?
All men.
They were all Jews?
All Jews.
Where did they come from?
They're all from Hungary.
What kind of work did you do?
We were making those
Ditches?
Ditches for the tanks.
Did you have capos, prisoners?
Yeah.
Yeah. Were they good or bad?
Well, as far as I know, they did whatever they could, but we found a few of them, they were stealing our food.
What kind of food did you have?
Food in the morning, we got a coffee, black coffee without sugar. At noon, they gave us a soup, cabbage soup or something like this. And at night was also a soup.
That's all?
That's all.
What was the daily routine from the time you got up until the time you went to sleep?
Well, in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, we had to be on the square. And they divided us into groups. And we were working there till 6 o'clock at night. Then we came back. Lunch they used to bring out. We came back 6 o'clock at night and we ate supper and we went to bed.
Were there people killed?
Yes.
How?
They were shot, a few of them.
When?
If somebody wanted to try to escape, we brought them back and they shot in front of us, of all of us.
By whom? Who shot
By the
them?
Nazis.
The
By
Germans?
no,
or
by the
Hungarians?
Hungarian Nazis.
The Hungarians. Were there any actions in the camp?
What do you mean by actions? Against them?
The German word actions.
I mean, executions. Yes,
Groups of people that they took away to be killed.
No, they didn't take away groups of people, but they took away the whoever was sick. They took them away into the forest and they shot them.
Were there attempts to escape?
A few of them, very, very few.
Were they successful?
No.
Was there an organized underground?
No.
Was there planned resistance?
No, not whatsoever.
Were there contacts with the outside?
No.
Were there any attempts at cultural activity?
Nothing.
Were there any children in the camp?
No.
What were the relationships between the Jewish inmates? Did they get along or not?
Yeah.
You had no Polish Jews where you were?
No.
You had no non-Jews?
No.
Did you receive help from fellow inmates?
Well, we helped each other, yes.
How?
Sometimes if food, if I could get from the kitchen, and the kitchen was working Jewish women from Hungary. It was about 20 women, and they used to help. Sometimes they gave me something. If I had, so I gave to my friends.
Were you ever sick?
Yes.
From what?
Typhus.
How did you recover?
God recovered me, I don't know.
There was no medical attention?
No.
There were no doctors?
There was one doctor between us, between our inmates. Was a
Jew or was
he was a Jew, but he never finished. He had 1 year medical school, and he helped us whatever he could as a doctor.
What kind of clothing did you wear?
The clothing, most of the boys. Most of the boys, they had old clothes,
Civilian clothes,
but we were lucky that I had good clothes from the army when I came, so I saved some clothes.
What were the sanitary conditions?
Bad.
Did you or anyone else receive mail officially?
I received one letter, another letter, a card.
Questionnaire number 2 for Camp Mauthausen. What is the date of the arrival in the camp?
Around the end of April 1945.
From where?
From Hidek Sheikh.
By what method of transportation?
Most of them we walked, and partially with train.
Did you come alone or with members of your family?
Not with members of my family. I was never with members of my family.
With your friends?
With friends, yeah.
Was there a selection when you came to the camp?
There was no selection whatsoever. They didn't even register us. We came on the way. There was selections by the SS. They beat us on the way, but we arrived to Mauthausen, and they didn't have space for us in the barracks, so they made a tent, a big tent, and they put us into the tent, about 1,001 tent.
What is the location and the size of the camp?
The location, the size of our camp?
Of Mauthausen.
Well, I never saw the whole Mauthausen. We were kept only in the back where they made the tent, and that's all we were kept.
Did it have a name, that place where the tent was?
No.
No. What was the size of that place?
You mean, must have
was
been...
one tent with how many men?
One tent with 1,000 people maybe in that tent.
And what kind of guard system?
I never saw any guards at all.
None?
Well, all around, but they didn't come to us. All around there were guards, with...
What kind? SS?
SS, yes.
When was the camp set up? Do you know?
When we came, the camp was there already.
But you don't know for how long?
No.
Do you know who the commander was?
No, I never saw a commander there.
Do you know who the officers were?
No, I never saw officers. The people who supplied us with food, they were Ukrainian prisoners.
What were they like?
I had nothing in common with them. They brought us the food in the morning and noon, whatever they gave us, and that's it.
How many Germans guarded the camp?
I don't know.
How many non-Germans?
This I don't know.
Were the Germans SS or some other unit? They were told or SS?
No, not told. There must have been SS.
Do you remember any incidents that could be used to accuse individual Nazis as war criminals?
I can accuse because not all the boys had place in the tent, so a lot of us were staying outside, even in the rain, and the guards, they were playing, so they were shooting at us, and one friend near me got shot because he was playing, just same as a toy.
But you don't remember who the guy was?
I never saw, no.
What was the composition of the inmates? How many were there?
Oh, there was a lot of, from all over they brought, like I told you, there must have been over 1,000.
What were their ages?
The same age, was between 20 and 40, I would say.
They were all men?
All men.
They were all Jews?
All Jews.
They were all Hungarian?
Yes.
What kind of work did you do?
Nothing at all.
Did you have capos?
Yeah, there was a few couples, yeah.
Were they good or bad?
They didn't divide it and they didn't multiply it. I mean,
They were...
yeah, but they didn't have anything to do, yeah.
what kind of food did you eat?
The same in the morning. In the morning we received a black coffee without sugar, and at noon, I don't even remember, they gave us lunch, but at night they brought something, a piece of bread and soup.
Describe the daily routine.
The daily routine, nothing. We just got up in the morning and all we were thinking about is some food, that's all.
And you did nothing all day?
Nothing at all.
Were there people killed?
In the camp, just a few incidents where I told you that the guards, they were shooting.
And that was the Hungarian guards or the Germans?
Germans.
Were there any attempts to escape?
No.
Was there an organized underground?
Nothing.
Was there planned resistance?
No.
Were there contacts with the outside?
No.
Were there any attempts at cultural activity?
Nothing.
Were there any children in the camp?
No.
What were the relationships between the Jewish inmates? Did they get along?
Yeah. They were of Jews, all of them, so they got along.
Did you receive help from fellow inmates?
Whatever they could help me, I don't think there was any help you could get from them.
Were you ill? Sick?
No, in Mauthausen I wasn't sick anymore. No.
Was there any medical attention?
No.
What kind of clothing did you wear?
The same clothing as we had before.
What were the sanitary conditions?
Bad, not at all.
Did you or anyone else receive mail officially?
No, not in camp.
Did you receive packages?
No.
Questionnaire number 2 for Camp of Gunskirchen.
No, I don't. I don't know.
Date of arrival at the camp?
It must have been the other part of April, about the 15th of April.
You were coming from Mauthausen?
We're coming from Mauthausen, yeah.
By what method of transportation?
By walking.
You arrived with the same friends?
Whoever was alive, yeah.
Was there a selection on arrival?
No.
What was the location and the size of the camp?
The camp was built in a forest. They were like cabins made, and we were in each cabin. I don't remember how many, but we couldn't even lay down. We had to sit all the time, one near the other. There was no place to lay down.
And near what city was the camp?
Near Wells.
Wells? What kind of guard system did the camp have?
They had Nazis. No, SS.
Only?
Yeah.
When was the camp set up?
The camp must have been set up shortly before we arrived because the cabins, they looked like new.
Do you know the name of the commander or any of the officers?
No, I don't.
Were there any non-Germans guarding the camp?
No.
The Germans that were guarding the camp were all SS?
Yes.
Do you remember any incidents that could be used to accuse individual Nazis as war criminals?
No, I had nothing to do with them. I don't remember.
What was how many inmates were there?
In each barrack or in each...
In the whole thing?
In the whole thing? Maybe 3,000.
What were their ages?
The same, between 20 and 40.
Were they all men?
There were a few, I think a few women, not too many.
Were they all Jews?
Yes.
Were they all Hungarian?
Yes, Hungarian Jews.
All?
Yeah.
What kind of work did you do?
Nothing.
Were there capos?
There were couples, yeah.
Were they good or bad?
Well, as far as I know, the couples were good to us, but we found out that from the packages that we received from the Red Cross, they were stealing food.
Describe the food you ate in the camp.
Well, the same food we got, and that camp was already bad because we didn't receive any water at all. We received only, I think, a cup of water a day, and this must have been for drinking and for washing. That's all we received. And as far as I remember, in the morning was also a black coffee without sugar, and 2 meals a day. In the morning, sugar, and in the afternoon they gave us a meal, soup or something.
Bread?
Bread, once in a while they give us a little bread.
Describe the daily routine.
The daily routine, there was no routine at all. We got up in the morning and...
there was an appel?
No, there was no appel at all.
Were people killed?
Not in the camp. They died in the camp a lot, but not killed.
Oh. Were there attempts to escape?
No.
Was there an organized underground?
Nothing.
Was there planned resistance?
No.
Were there contacts with the outside?
No.
Were there any attempts at cultural activity?
Nothing.
Were there any children in the camp?
I think there was one child was born there, I think.
Did he live? Was it he or a she? Do you know?
I don't remember it was a he or she, but I remember one child was born there.
And lived?
This I don't know.
What were the relationship between the Jewish inmates? Did they get along with each other?
Yeah, they had, yes.
There were no Polish Jews. Did you receive help from fellow inmates?
The same as before. I mean, what could he help me? There was nothing to help.
Were you sick?
No.
Was there any medical attention?
No.
What kind of clothing did you wear?
The same clothing, the same old
You were still wearing?
dirty clothing, yeah.
What kind of sanitary conditions were there?
Nothing at all.
Did you or anyone else receive mail officially?
No.
Did you receive packages?
Well, there was I think a few days before the liberation, they divided a piece of chocolate because they received from the Red Cross. That's all I remember. Everybody got a little piece of chocolate.